The big meeting room was full of angry voices and flashing lights. Jihoon sat alone at a small table in the middle of it all. His hands were steady on the table, even though everyone around him was shouting. He looked calm, but inside his heart was beating fast. The room was huge, with tall walls that went up so high you could barely see the top. 12 different types of alien creatures sat in a circle around him, and most of them looked very angry. Commander Hyerin stood up from her seat. Her blue skin looked like fish scales under the bright lights, and she was much taller than any human. Her voice was loud and clear when she spoke to everyone in the room. She pointed one long finger at Jihoon and said the words that would change everything. The humans on planet Kepler 442b have broken our laws for the last time. They have been digging up special rocks and metals from places where they are not supposed to dig. We told them to stop 3 times, but they did not listen. The Valkorian Empire wants all humans to leave that planet right now. We give them 7 days to pack up and go away. Jihoon knew this was coming, but it still felt like a punch in the stomach. The planet they were talking about was called New Busan, and it was home to 2 million humans. These people had left Earth 15 years ago looking for a better life. They had worked so hard to build cities and farms and schools on that planet. Now they were being told to leave everything behind. The special rocks and metals that Commander Hyerin was talking about were very important to humans. They needed these materials to build spaceships that could protect human colonies from attacks. Without these rocks, human space would be like a house with no walls or doors. Anyone could come in and take whatever they wanted. Jihoon stood up slowly from his chair. His back was straight and his voice was steady when he spoke, even though he felt scared inside. He looked around the room at all the different alien faces. Some looked like giant insects, some looked like walking trees, and some looked like nothing he had ever seen before. Honored council members, he said, "My people have done nothing wrong. When we first came to that planet, the mining areas had no signs or markers telling us we could not dig there. We did not know these were special protected places. We have tried to fix this problem. We offered to pay money for any damage. We offered to help move the rocks and metals to safer places. We even offered to work together with the Valkorian Empire to mine these materials the right way. But every time we tried to make peace, they said no. A tall creature that looked like a praying mantis made a sound like clicking his teeth. This was how his people laughed. The creature said money from humans could never pay for the damage they have caused. The whole human species does not have enough money to fix what they broke. The Empire is being very kind by giving you 7 days to leave. You should take this offer and be grateful." But Jihoon was not finished talking. He pressed a button on a small device he carried, and suddenly, the big screen in the room lit up with pictures and numbers that made several aliens gasp in surprise. The pictures showed planets that looked like they had been completely destroyed. The land was gray and dead with no plants or animals anywhere. The Empire talks about being kind while they have 47 big warships waiting at the edge of our solar system, Jihoon said, pointing to the screen. They talk about protecting the environment while their own mining operations have killed everything on 6 different planets in the last 10 years. The evidence was right there for everyone to see. Satellite pictures showed huge Valkorian mining machines that had stripped entire planets bare, leaving them looking like giant rocks floating in space. Chemical tests proved that the Valkorians had poisoned the water on planets where other alien species lived. The room became very quiet as everyone realized what they were seeing. Commander Hyerin's face became hard and angry like stone. "This old information does not matter," she said. "The humans still have 7 days. After that, we will force them to leave." Jihoon smiled then, but it was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile that made smart people feel worried. Several of the alien delegates had learned that when humans smiled like this, it usually meant trouble was coming. "Commander, you do not understand our position," he said. "We are not leaving our home, but I want to make something clear for everyone here. When you attack New Busan, you keep saying it will be suicide for my people. I just want to know suicide for which side." The room exploded with confused voices and worried whispers. The aliens could not understand what Jihoon meant. The Valkorians had more ships, more weapons, and more soldiers than the humans could ever hope to fight. What could 2 million human farmers and miners, possibly, do against such a powerful enemy? Some of the aliens started talking to each other in their own languages, trying to figure out if the human was bluffing or if he knew something they did not. The Valkorian ships were some of the strongest in the galaxy. Their weapons could destroy entire cities from space. Their soldiers were trained warriors who had conquered dozens of planets. Commander Hyerin looked at Ji-hoon like he was crazy. "Do you think your little colony can fight the entire Valkorian fleet?" she asked. "Are you planning to throw rocks at our spaceships?" Ji-hoon just kept smiling that dangerous smile. "We have been preparing for this day for a long time, Commander. We knew that sooner or later someone would try to take our home away from us. Humans have a saying that goes, 'You can take our lives, but you cannot take our freedom.'" The alien delegates were getting more confused by the minute. They had studied human military capabilities and knew that the humans had only 3 small warships and a few cargo ships converted for fighting. The Valkorian fleet could destroy the entire human defense force in less than an hour, but there was something in Ji-hoon's voice that made even the most confident aliens feel uneasy. He spoke like someone who had a secret weapon that no one else knew about. He spoke like someone who was not afraid of losing because he knew something. His enemies did not. The council session went on for 2 more hours, but nothing changed. The Valkorians refused to negotiate and the humans refused to leave. At the end of the meeting, Commander Hyerin stood up and made her final statement. 7 days, she said. After that, any human still on Kepler 442b will be considered an enemy of the Valkorian Empire. We will use whatever force is necessary to remove them. Ji-hoon gathered his papers and prepared to leave the room. But before he walked out, he turned back to face the assembled aliens. "One more time. You have made your choice," he said. "We tried to solve this with words. We offered to work together. We offered to share what we found, but you chose war instead. Remember that when this is over. Remember that you forced us to show you what humans are really capable of when someone threatens our families as." Ji-hoon walked out of the room. Several alien delegates felt a chill run down their spines. There was something about the way he said those last words that suggested the humans had been planning for this moment for a very long time. And if there was one thing the galaxy had learned about humans, it was that they were very good at surviving impossible situations. 5 days before the time limit ended, Captain Minho got the strangest orders he had ever received in his whole military career. He was the commander of the fastest human spaceship in the defense fleet. He thought he would be told to help people escape from the planet or maybe fight one last hopeless battle against the enemy. Instead, his boss, Admiral Suman, was telling him to deliver packages like he was some kind of space mailman. "Sir, I do not understand," Minho said as he looked at Admiral Suman through the video screen on his ship. "You want me to take these metal boxes to mining asteroids all around our solar system. Should we not be getting ready to defend our people instead, Admiral?" Suman looked tired, but her eyes were determined. "Captain, do you trust me with your life?" "Yes, sir, I trust you completely," Minho answered without thinking. "Then take those packages exactly where I told you to take them. The locations must be perfect. Do not move even 1 kilometer away from the coordinates I gave you, and Captain, make sure your ship is far away from those asteroids before the deadline ends." Minho looked at the metal boxes stacked in his cargo hold. They were heavy and made strange humming sounds when he got close to them. Each box had numbers and symbols written on the side that he did not recognize. But if Admiral Suman said to deliver them, then he would deliver them even if he did not understand why. Meanwhile, on the surface of planet New Busan, something very strange was happening. Instead of packing their belongings to leave, the colonists were digging holes. Everywhere you looked, people were working with shovels and digging machines, making tunnels that went deep underground. It looked like they were trying to build underground shelters to hide from the enemy spaceships. Dr. Ariam was in charge of all the digging. She was the smartest engineer on the planet, and she worked day and night making sure every tunnel was dug in exactly the right place. She had diagrams and charts spread out on tables, and she kept checking measurements with her instruments. "The structural supports need to be exactly 47 meters apart," she told her workers. "Any mistake and the harmonic resonance will not work properly." Her assistant, Young Ho, climbed out of one of the deeper tunnels with dirt all over his clothes and sweat dripping from his face. "Doctor, the miners are asking questions. This does not look like any shelter they have ever seen before, because it is not a shelter. Ariam said, quietly looking around to make sure no one else could hear. It is a musical instrument. The biggest one ever built. Young-ho stared at her like she had gone crazy. A musical instrument? But doctor, we are supposed to be getting ready for war. Trust me, Ariam said. We are getting ready for war, but not the kind of war anyone expects up in space. Other human ships were flying around doing what looked like normal patrol missions, but each ship stopped at specific locations and left behind small devices. That looked like communication equipment. Captain Unji was commanding a patrol ship called Dokdo, and she had already placed 12 of these devices in different spots around the solar system. These are not really communication devices, are they? Her first officer, Lieutenant Taehoon, asked as he watched another device float away from their ship. No, Yoonji said with a mysterious smile. They are much more interesting than that. When this is over, the whole galaxy is going to learn something new about human engineering. The Valkorian fleet stayed at the edge of the solar system, watching everything the humans were doing through their powerful telescopes. Commander Hyerin read reports from her intelligence officers that said the humans were digging holes and putting up sensor equipment. It all looked like normal defensive preparations from people who had never fought a real war before. She had 2 massive warships called dreadnoughts and 45 smaller fighting ships. The humans had 3 tiny warships and some cargo ships that had been changed to carry weapons. It would be like using a hammer to crush an ant. The battle would be over so fast that other species would barely have time to record what happened. But Commander Hyerin did not know that every single human in the solar system was working together on the biggest engineering project their species had ever attempted. The communication devices were actually machines that could control gravity. The tunnel system was not a shelter but a carefully designed sound amplification system. And the packages that Captain Minho was delivering contained devices that would turn ordinary space rocks into something completely new. On the second day of deliveries, Minho met up with Captain Daeho, who was commanding a mining ship near the asteroid belt. Daeho's ship was much bigger than Minho's ship because it was designed to carry huge amounts of rock and metal. Any idea what we are really doing out here? Daeho asked, as his crew loaded one of the mysterious metal boxes onto a large asteroid. Minho shook his head. I have been thinking about it for 2 days, and I still do not understand. But Admiral Suman has never been wrong about anything. If she says this will work, then it will work back on New Busan. The digging continued day and night. The colonists worked in shifts so the digging never stopped. Old people brought food and water to the workers. Children helped carry dirt and rocks away from the tunnel entrances. Even the farmers left their fields to help with the construction. Young-ho was getting more confused every day as he watched the tunnel system take shape. It did not look like any building he had ever seen. The tunnels curved and twisted in patterns that seemed to follow some kind of mathematical formula. The walls were covered with special materials that Ariam had ordered from the colony supply stores. Doctor, what exactly is harmonic resonance? Young-ho asked during one of their short breaks. Ariam sat down on a pile of dirt and rubbed her tired eyes. Everything in the universe vibrates at certain frequencies. If you can match that frequency exactly, you can make anything shake itself apart, like breaking a wine glass with a high-pitched sound. Exactly, but we are going to do it to spaceships instead of wine glasses. On the 4th day, Captain Minho finished delivering all the packages. He had visited 37 different asteroids scattered throughout the solar system. Each asteroid now had one of the mysterious metal boxes attached to its surface. The boxes had opened up and extended strange antenna-like devices that pointed toward the center of the solar system. Captain Yoonji finished placing her devices on. The same day, her communication relays formed a perfect geometric pattern around the entire solar system. If you could see them all at once from far away, they would look like a giant spider web made of invisible lines connecting each device to all the others. Dr. Ariam stood in the main control room deep underground on New Busan. The room was filled with computers and monitors showing information from all over the planet and throughout the solar system. She looked at the readings and smiled, for the first time in days. All teams, the harmonic calculations are complete, she announced over the communication system. We are ready to begin the final phase, Admiral. Suman received the message on her command ship and felt a mixture of relief and worry. The plan was so crazy that it had never been tried before, but the mathematics were solid and the engineering was perfect. If it worked, the Valkorian fleet would never forget this day. If it failed, then 2 million humans would be dead by tomorrow night. She opened a communication channel to all human ships and settlements. Attention all personnel. Operation Resonance begins in 18 hours. Make sure you are in your assigned positions and remember what we are fighting for. We are not just defending New Busan. We are showing the galaxy that humans will never surrender our right to exist. The final night before the deadline expired was quiet on New Busan. People stayed in their homes with their families knowing that tomorrow would change everything. The children asked their parents what was going to happen, but the adults could only hold them close and hope that their scientists and engineers had found a way to save them all. In space, the Valkorian fleet prepared for what they thought would be an easy victory. Commander Hyeron reviewed the battle plans one more time. The human defenses looked pathetic compared to her overwhelming firepower. She would destroy their ships first, then bombard the planet until the colonists surrendered. It would all be over by lunchtime. But deep underground, Dr. Ariam made final adjustments to her equipment and smiled, because she knew something that Commander Hyeron did not know. Physics was the same everywhere in the universe, and tomorrow the Valkorians were going to get a very expensive lesson in how sound waves and gravity could work together to create something beautiful and terrible. The 7 days were over and the clock showed exactly 12 noon galactic time. Commander Hyeron gave the order that would start what she thought would be the shortest battle in space history. Her voice was calm and confident when she spoke to her fleet. All ships move forward and attack the human colony ends today. The Valkorian fleet began moving toward New Busan like a pack of hungry wolves. Their formation was perfect with the 2 giant dreadnought ships in the center, and the smaller warships spread out in a deadly pattern. Their weapons were charged and ready to fire. The intelligence report said the humans had only 3 old fighting ships and some cargo vessels that had been turned into makeshift warships. Captain Minho watched from his position at the edge of the solar system. His ship sensors were locked onto the approaching enemy fleet, but he was not afraid. He pressed a button on his communication panel and spoke to all the human ships scattered throughout the system. All human vessels, this is Minho. Confirm your positions and get ready for something the galaxy has never seen before. The responses came back quickly. Every human ship was exactly where it needed to be, spread out across the solar system, in what looked like a desperate attempt to avoid the main battle. The Valkorians had noted their positions and laughed because cargo ships and mining vessels could never fight real warships. On the surface of New Busan, Dr. Ariam stood in the underground control room surrounded by screens showing earthquake readings from all over the planet. The room hummed with electricity and the air felt thick with power. She looked at her watch. The Valkorian fleet would be in the perfect position in exactly 7 minutes. All teams begin the sequence on my signal. She announced to every human worker on the planet, we have spent weeks preparing for this moment. Do not let our families down. Young Ho called from his station. Doctor, the harmonic calculations are perfect. But, are you sure we can handle this much power? We are sending the entire planet's energy through these underground tunnels. I am sure, Ariam replied. Physics works the same way no matter who discovers it. The Valkorians are about to learn a very expensive lesson about sound and vibration. Commander Hyeron stood on her flagship bridge watching the human colony grow larger on the main screen. Her tactical officer reported that they would be in weapons range in 3 minutes. The human ships were trying to run away, but they were too slow to escape her faster warships. Let them run, she said with a cruel smile. We will hunt them down after we finish destroying the planet. Begin bombardment as soon as we are close enough. What happened next had never been tried in the history of space warfare. At Dr. Ariam's signal, every human device in the solar system turned on at exactly the same moment. The communication relays revealed their true purpose as gravity manipulation machines creating precise distortions in space and time. The tunnel system on New Busan began making a low-frequency sound that went deep into the planet's core. The mining asteroids that Captain Minho had visited came alive with activity. Each asteroid contained a device that turned the space rock into a giant vibrating chamber. As the gravity waves from the relay devices reached them, they began to shake in perfect harmony with the sound pulse from New Busan. What is happening? Hyarin demanded as her ship sensors began showing impossible readings. The entire solar system appeared to be vibrating like a giant musical instrument. The answer came from Lieutenant Tai-hoon aboard the human patrol ship, Dokdo. Commander Hyarin. This is the Human Defense Fleet. We want to thank you for positioning your ships exactly where we needed them. You see, you are not just flying through our solar system anymore. You are trapped inside the largest musical instrument ever built. The Valkorian fleet suddenly found themselves caught in the middle of a cosmic symphony. The gravity waves, asteroid vibrations, and planetary sound pulse had combined to create a standing wave pattern throughout the entire solar system. Every Valkorian ship was trapped at a gravity point, unable to move forward or backward. But the humans were not finished. Captain Yunji's voice came over the communication channel. The frequency we are creating is specifically designed to match the molecular structure of Valkorian ship armor. In about 30 seconds, every ship in your fleet is going to start shaking itself apart. The science was beautiful in its simplicity. Every material in the universe had a natural vibration frequency that, when matched exactly, would cause it to destroy itself. The humans had spent weeks studying pieces of Valkorian armor, calculating the exact sound signature needed to make their ships fall apart. "This is impossible," Hyarin whispered as her ship began to shake. Warning lights flashed on every control panel as the hull started, developing cracks like a broken egg. No came Ambassador Jihoon's voice from the planet's surface. "This is human engineering. We told you it would be suicide. We just did not say which side would be dying." The Valkorian ships were trapped in an invisible cage made of sound and gravity. Their hulls began to vibrate at exactly the right frequency to tear themselves apart. The metal that was supposed to protect them had become their enemy. The harder they tried to escape, the faster their ships began to break. Commander Hyarin felt her flagship shuddering like it was caught in an earthquake that would never end. Her engineering officer reported that structural failures were happening on every deck. The ship was literally shaking itself to pieces. "Captain," Minho's voice cut through the chaos. "Valkorian fleet, you have exactly 10 minutes before the vibration reaches maximum power. At that point, your ships will experience complete structural failure. You can surrender now, or you can explain to your families why you chose to die attacking innocent farmers." The genius of the human strategy was becoming clear to everyone watching. The humans had not built bigger weapons or stronger shields. Instead, they had turned the laws of physics into their army, using the fundamental forces of nature as their weapons. The Galactic Council members monitoring the battle were recording everything, knowing they were witnessing the most creative military strategy ever conceived. "You are lying," Hyarin transmitted back. "Your own ships would be destroyed by these frequencies too." Dr. Ariam's voice answered from deep underground. "Commander, human ships are built with completely different metals. Our armor is designed to absorb and scatter vibrations, not amplify them. We learned this from studying buildings on Earth that survive earthquakes." The tactical situation was unprecedented. The Valkorian fleet, despite having overwhelming firepower, was completely helpless. They could not attack because gravity held them in place. They could not retreat for the same reason, and they could not fight an enemy that was using the universe itself as a weapon. The resonance frequency was reaching dangerous levels. Valkorian ships throughout the fleet were showing critical damage. Their proud warships were being destroyed by invisible forces they could not see or fight. The greatest military fleet in the sector was being defeated by farmers and engineers who had turned their entire solar system into a trap. Commander Hyarin realized with growing horror that the humans had planned this perfectly. They had used the Valkorian fleet's own confidence against them. The enemy had positioned themselves exactly where the humans needed them to be. The trap had been set and sprung with mathematical precision. 10 minutes felt like 10 hours as the Valkorian ships slowly shook themselves apart. The sound of groaning metal and failing systems filled every bridge. Every second brought them closer to complete destruction, and there was absolutely nothing they could do to stop it. The Valkorian fleet was trapped in a nightmare they could not wake up from. Their ships were designed to survive direct hits from energy weapons and missile attacks, but they were being torn apart by invisible forces they could not fight. The vibrations had turned their own protective armor into their worst enemy, creating tiny cracks that spread like spiderwebs across every surface. Commander High-Air flagship shook so violently that she had to hold on to her command chair to keep from falling. The bridge lights flickered on and off as electrical systems began to fail throughout the ship. Her crew members were being thrown around like toys as the harmonic resonance grew stronger. "Engineering report," she shouted over the noise of groaning metal and sparking electronics. "Commander, we are reading structural failures on all levels," came the panicked response from her chief engineer. "The hull is destroying itself. It's like the metal has come alive and is trying to shake itself apart. We have never seen anything like this." Captain Minho's voice came through the communication system clear and calm, despite the chaos surrounding the enemy fleet, Valkorian fleet. "This is the Human Defense Force. You have exactly 10 minutes before the resonance frequency reaches critical level. At that point, your ships will break apart completely. This is your final warning." The brilliance of the human strategy was now obvious to military observers throughout the galaxy. They had not tried to build bigger guns or stronger defenses. Instead, they had weaponized the fundamental laws of physics themselves, turning the entire solar system into a trap. The Galactic Council members watching the battle were documenting what would become the most studied military engagement in galactic history. "You are bluffing," High-Air transmitted back, even though her voice shook with fear. "Your own ships would be destroyed by these same frequencies." Dr. Ariam's voice answered from the underground control center on New Busan. "Commander, human ships use completely different construction methods. Our hull materials are designed to bend and absorb vibrations instead of fighting them. We learned this technique from studying how buildings on Earth survive earthquakes, while rigid structures collapse." The difference in engineering philosophy was now a matter of life and death. Valkorian ships were built like fortresses designed to resist external attacks through brute strength. Human ships were built like trees, designed to bend without breaking. The same force that was destroying the Valkorian fleet was harmlessly absorbed by human vessels. Lieutenant Tae-hoon monitored the sensor readings from his station aboard the patrol ship. "Docto, all human vessels. The resonance is reaching optimal frequency. Valkorian ships are showing critical structural damage across their entire fleet, but Commander High-Air was not ready to give up, even though her situation was hopeless. "All ships, emergency power to engines. Break formation and try to ram their positions. If we are going to die, we will take some of them with us. Commander, no." Her chief engineer called out. "At this resonance frequency, any sudden movement or impact will cause immediate hull breach. The vibrations have made our armor so brittle that even a small collision will shatter us like glass. We are completely trapped." The realization hit her like a physical blow. The humans had created a perfect tactical prison. The Valkorian fleet was suspended in a web of gravitational forces, held motionless while their own ships slowly vibrated themselves to destruction. Any attempt to escape would only make the destruction happen. "Faster." Ambassador Jihoon's voice came over the communication channel again. "Calm and reasonable, Commander High-Air. We are not monsters. We do not want to watch your people die, but we will not abandon our homes because you decided to threaten us with superior numbers. What do you want?" High-Air asked, her pride fighting against her responsibility to save her crew's lives. "We want what we have always wanted," Jihoon replied. "To be left alone to live our lives in peace. Withdraw your fleet. Acknowledge our right to exist in this system, and we will shut down the resonance field. Your ships will be free to leave and we can all return to our families." The offer was more generous than High-Air had any right to expect. A human fleet in her position would likely demand unconditional surrender, war reparations, and territory. Instead, they were offering to return to the way things were before, with only the recognition that humanity deserved the same right to peaceful existence that every other species took for granted. "And if I refuse?" High-Air asked, already knowing she had no real choice. "Then in about 6 minutes, the Valkorian Empire will have to explain to 47 families why their loved ones died, trying to evict farmers and miners from a planet they had every legal right to call home." Jihoon answered. "The choice is yours, Commander, but choose quickly. The laws of physics wait for no one." Hiren looked around her bridge at her crew members who were struggling to maintain their stations as the ship continued to shake apart. These were good people who had families, waiting for them at home. They had followed her orders without question, and now they were going to die because of her pride and the Empire's greed. She thought about the 2 million human colonists on New Busan who had built their homes and raised their children on that planet. They had offered to negotiate to share the resources to find a peaceful solution. Every offer had been rejected because the Empire wanted everything and was willing to give nothing. The vibrations were getting stronger now, and she could hear metal beginning to tear in the lower decks of her ship. In less than 5 minutes, the harmonic resonance would reach the frequency that would cause complete structural collapse. Her entire fleet would be destroyed. And to force innocent people from their homes so the Empire could take resources that rightfully belonged to those who had found them. Several of her officers said at once, "Please give the order to surrender. We do not want to die for this." Hiren closed her eyes and thought about her own family back on the Valkorian homeworld. Her daughter was only 8 years old and asked about her mother's job every time they talked. She had always been proud to tell her daughter that she protected the Empire from its enemies. But these humans were not enemies. They were families trying to live in peace. She opened her communication channel knowing that her next words would end her military career, but save the lives of everyone under her command. "This is Commander Hiren of the Valkorian Imperial Fleet to all human forces. We surrender and agree to withdraw from your system immediately. Please shut down your weapon." The response came immediately from Dr. Arium. "Acknowledged, Commander, beginning. Shutdown sequence now. Your ships will be free to move in 60 seconds. True to their word, the humans began shutting down their massive weapon system. The gravitational fields slowly weakened, and the harmonic vibrations faded to nothing. The Valkorian ships stopped shaking and their crews began damage assessment. Emergency repair teams worked frantically to fix the worst of the structural damage. Within an hour, the entire Valkorian fleet had turned around and was heading back toward the edge of the solar system. Their ships were badly damaged and their pride was completely destroyed, but they were alive. The humans had shown mercy when they could have chosen vengeance as her flagship limped away from New Busan. Commander Hiren sent one final message to Ambassador Jihoon. "We underestimated your species. That will not happen again." Jihoon's response was simple. "We hope it will not be necessary again. Commander, safe travels." The news of what became known as the Harmonic Incident spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours of Commander Hiren's surrender, emergency meetings were being called in government centers on hundreds of worlds. The implications of what humanity had accomplished were staggering and terrifying to species that had relied on military might to get their way. Ambassador Jihoon stood before the same galactic council that had been ready to abandon his species just days earlier, but now everything had changed. The Zephyrian delegate who had laughed at human capabilities sat in complete silence. The representatives of species that had supported the Valkorian ultimatum looked nervous and uncomfortable. The Valkorian ambassador was the first to speak, and his words shocked everyone in the chamber. "Honored delegates, my empire wishes to formally withdraw all territorial claims in the Kepler 442 system. We also wish to propose a non-aggression pact with the human colonies, and to offer complete diplomatic recognition of their sovereignty." The speed of this reversal was breathtaking. 3 days earlier, these same Valkorians had been threatening to destroy human cities from orbit. Now they were offering peace treaties and diplomatic recognition. The threat of overwhelming military force had been completely neutralized by creative engineering and scientific knowledge. Jihoon nodded respectfully. "The human colonies accept your generous offer. We look forward to negotiating environmental protection protocols for our mining operations. We believe that working together, we can find solutions that benefit everyone." But the real discussion was just beginning. Council member after council member stood up to ask the same basic question. How had a species with barely 100 colonies and no major military fleet just defeated the largest battle group in the sector without firing a single shot? Dr. Arium attended the session as a technical expert to explain the science behind their victory. Harmonic resonance is a well-understood phenomenon in physics, she said. We simply scaled it up and applied it with mathematical precision. The gravitational field generators created standing wave patterns that trapped the enemy fleet in locations where the acoustic frequency would be most effective against their ship construction. But the coordination required protested the cetacean delegate who looked like a giant whale with arms. The precise timing, the mathematical calculations, the engineering across multiple planets and asteroid fields. How did your species accomplish such a complex operation? Captain Minho answered from the visitor gallery. Because we had to. When someone threatens your home, your family, your entire way of life, you discover capabilities you did not know you possessed. We did not want to fight. We wanted to farm and mine and build families and live peaceful lives, but we refused to be bullied by anyone. The session continued for many hours, but the real changes were happening outside the council chambers. News of the harmonic incident was being analyzed by military strategists on thousands of worlds. Smaller species that had been pushed around by larger empires were suddenly asking questions about human defensive technologies. Captain Yunji found herself flooded with communication requests from dozens of species defense forces, all wanting to understand how gravitational field manipulation could be used for protection. The humans surprised everyone by being remarkably open about sharing the basic scientific principles. Knowledge should be used to protect people, not to threaten them. She explained to a group of military engineers from the Andromedan system. We will teach you the fundamental science, but we expect you to use it responsibly, to defend your homes, not to attack others. Within 1 month of the incident, the entire balance of galactic politics had shifted dramatically. The Valkorian Empire found their aggressive expansion plans stalled as smaller species began developing their own versions of harmonic defense systems. The age of conquest through superior firepower was ending as creative defensive technologies spread throughout the galaxy. But perhaps the most significant change was in how other species viewed humanity. They were no longer seen as naive newcomers who could be easily intimidated or conquered. They were now recognized as a species that could take the fundamental laws of physics and turn them into tools for protecting what they loved. The human approach to warfare was completely different from anything the galaxy had seen before. Instead of trying to build bigger weapons or stronger armor, they had focused on understanding how the universe worked and using that knowledge creatively. Their victory had been achieved through science and engineering, rather than violence and destruction. Ambassador Ji-hoon's final statement to the Galactic Council became one of the most quoted speeches in diplomatic history. We are not conquerors, he said. We are not aggressors. We are engineers, farmers, teachers, parents, and dreamers. But we are also human, and that means we will never stop finding new ways to protect what we love. We hope never to use these capabilities again, but we want the galaxy to understand that threatening human families is quite literally suicide. The only question is which side will be making that fatal choice. The harmonic incident marked the beginning of a new era in galactic civilization where brute force was no longer the ultimate solution to disputes. Creativity, ingenuity, and the willingness to think beyond conventional weapons had proven more effective than the largest fleet ever assembled. Science and engineering had defeated military might through pure intellectual superiority. Military academies throughout the galaxy began teaching new courses on defensive physics and creative problem-solving. The old strategies of overwhelming force and intimidation were being replaced by more subtle approaches that required actual thinking, rather than just bigger gun species that had never cooperated before, began sharing scientific knowledge to develop better defensive systems. The threat of the harmonic incident had shown everyone that the traditional balance of power could be overturned overnight by a single scientific breakthrough. A New Busan life gradually returned to normal. Human families went back to their daily routines, secure in the knowledge that their homes were protected by the most innovative defense system ever created. Children played in parks that had been tunnel entrances just weeks before farmers returned to their fields, knowing that their crops would feed their families rather than alien conquerors. The mining operations continued under new environmental guidelines that satisfied both human needs and galactic ecological standards. The rare minerals that had started the whole conflict were now being extracted using methods that actually improved the planetary environment. Rather than damaging it, Dr. Ariam became the most famous engineer in human space, receiving offers to teach at universities throughout the galaxy. She chose to stay on New Busan, continuing her research into harmonic physics and training the next generation of human scientists. Her underground laboratory became a pilgrimage site for engineers from dozens of species. Captain Minho was promoted to admiral and tasked with developing new defensive technologies for human colonies. His experience with the gravitational field generators made him the galaxy's leading expert on weaponized physics. The humans had proven that sometimes the best defense against superior force was superior intelligence. They had shown that a small group of determined people armed with scientific knowledge and creative thinking could overcome any threat, no matter how overwhelming it might appear. The galaxy would never again underestimate the species that had turned an entire solar system into a musical instrument and used the laws of physics themselves as weapons of protection rather than conquest.